If there's any interest in that, or you have a project that you're considering that could be resilience focused, I'd be happy to talk more about the program and what would be eligible and what that could look like. And those are due actually pretty quickly in January. I know it doesn't, January, a few months away, but with the holidays, it comes very quickly. So I believe it's January 5th, those are due. And then the other is called the Maine Infrastructure Adaptation Fund, and that's for infrastructure. So sometimes culvert replacements or stormwater systems, things like that. And the notice for that funding opportunity will more than likely come out in March. So there's still some time to think through if there's a project that the town might be interested in. It varies with the match on those. I've seen anywhere between 5 and 10%. So it's actually quite nice for towns, especially with some significant infrastructure projects that could be completed with those funds. And I've also seen you could just apply for engineering and design work, which could sometimes be up to like $75,000. But you can also apply for construction type projects, which can range between $2 to $4 million. So it is a fairly substantial amount of funding that can be obtained through that fund if the town was interested. So I think those are the two on the horizon that would apply to Bucksport. I did bring up the Working Waterfront Public Infrastructure Fund the last time I was there, as that one was announced back in September. Rich, I did ask the question as to if recreational working waterfronts with a recreation focus could be funded. And I do know that one of the questions they're going to ask on the application is how does this project support the commercial fisheries? So if there's a straight-faced way of answering that question, then if there's a project that you could think of, you might be able to pursue that. But I think it's mostly for commercial fishing working waterfronts and not recreational type working waterfronts.
So the one lobsterman we have here probably is not a straight face.
I just think there would probably be applications that are a little bit more competitive. Let's just say that.
It's hard to have anymore since our waters are shut down to fishing.
I know.
But I did have the coastal. So my question for the coastal community grant. So we just closed out a SHIP grant for the planning of the waterfront for resiliency. And one of the ideas that came out of that was to reroute the walkway at the point. Now, I know construction costs aren't included, but could I get the design work for that?
Yep. So, and that's something you could consider through that grant program, or the community action grant. But it seems like the community action grant right now is focused on those few projects that were already written in there. So I wouldn't, considering tonight's meeting is to kind of focus in on those projects and priorities, then maybe since there is this other funding opportunity, you could pursue that. And Rich, if you want some help trying to scope some of that out, I'd be happy to help.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, I have a question about the timing. You said the thing that we're working on now would be due in May.
That's correct.
When would the notification of award or the payment period start? Do you know that?
I don't know. I will tell you that for this past round, we had to submit by August 29th, and we are told that we will find out mid-December. So September, October, it's like a 4-month turnaround period. So May, June, July, August, maybe by August, September.
Right, and then my question is, our reason for not submitting this in the current calendar year, but to wait until next calendar year was to try to have it synchronized a little bit better with the Island Institute Fellowship Program. And do you know whether this is still will synchronize properly with that?
Yeah, so I think my only concern is that the fellow, you'd have to apply for that program in spring, and so you wouldn't know that you had the funds until the fall. So while you could apply, the issue would be if you're sort of, you wouldn't have the funds in hand. So if um, essentially if you don't have another funding source identified to help pay for the fellow, you'd be kind of taking a risk there with saying that you would want to host a fellow, paying for them through the community action grant. But again, it's kind of like you wouldn't have the funds in hand. So
Wait till the money's in the palm of your hand.
So to follow up with Rob's question, if we were to apply in May with that cycle in mind and not having funds in hand, I think it would be hard to take that risk on taxpayers right now. But I'm just one voice. But how long would we have to spend funds? So if we got it in September, October, could we wait to the next season for the fellow and pay them then? Would we still be in a year window to spend the money?
so you can apply for a 2-year grant, like a 24-month. The only thing I know about the Island Fellows is that they are actually 2-year programs. So you would have, let's say, funding. So if you got it would be September 2026 through September 2028. Okay, so I would need to look at a calendar, but I think it actually might work because you would essentially, well, no, because then you wouldn't have the fellow, like you get the money in hand in September of 2026. You would then apply in spring of 2027. They would start fall 2027 and you would have them for 2 years. So it would actually extend until fall of 2029.
Yeah.
So you'd have to figure out funding for a portion of their stay.
So I have a question because we were trying to synchronize, but I don't think we're gonna synchronize. And I think we just have to make a decision on what we're gonna do. So I know we wanted the fellow. What are the other options besides that? Because this can just keep getting kicked down the road. I mean, we started this, actually, didn't we start talking about this in 2024? Is that when we started? I'm on a couple of committees, but so we're already now thinking we're not applying until 2026, and there's been money on the table, and we made a decision based on what we believed at the time would be January. And I think we have to just say, okay, let's reshuffle the way we're gonna do this. Maybe there has to be another option besides a fellow, because do we want to utilize these funds? Or do we wanna just keep pushing it off several years? This is not a little bit. I mean, if we started in 2024, we wouldn't, just talking about the timeline that Jana gave, it's looking 3 years. So I just think that we need to start thinking, what are the other options besides using a fellow to do this? I mean, where would what are some of the other, because there's not always that available to agencies as well. So what have they done? Is that something Jana?
So I think part of what Ralph had sent was a presentation on some of the energy coaching programs. Ralph, I believe that was distributed. I look on here, but there's quite a bit, and I wanted to try to potentially connect this committee with a Climate to Thrive. That's a organization that's been doing work primarily on Mount Desert Island, but I do know that they have been looking to expand out, and specifically with their energy coaching program. So there's a presentation in here that Ralph had sent that a Climate to Thrive had created as part of their Local Leads the Way program. But essentially they're advocating for legislation at the state level to be able to fund energy coaching programs in communities, and allow for these programs to be an opportunity for local communities throughout the entire state.
I actually read that concept plan, Jana, I think I met with them a few weeks ago. It's great what they're trying to do throughout the state.
Yeah, I honestly think that, I think it's great. I think, they're willing, I'm just gonna like go back to, I have a few emails back and forth with, a few of the people that work at A Climate to Thrive on what their, offerings would be. So if you just give me a minute, I can pull up the emails so that I can look and see.
We got a grant from A Climate to Thrive for the 2 EV chargers. That's where
Yeah.
the money came from.
Yeah, exactly.
Doug Beck, is Doug still with him? Doug Beck?
I'm sorry, who? Doug?
Yeah.
He is. He's mostly focused on the EV charging though,
yeah.
so that's
Yeah.
probably why you dealt with him.
Yeah.
So it looks like A Climate to Thrive has been setting up like a monthly call for communities that are engaged in energy coaching programs. And so, this committee could potentially like designate a person or a couple people to potentially attend some of these calls and just get more information. They noted here that they're experimenting with keeping monthly energy coaching program calls on Tuesdays at noon. That there's like a focus of these different meetings. So November's energy coaching call will focus on final aspects of project design. So essentially they're trying to empower the community to do some of this work themselves. But it could be a volunteer driven effort instead of having, like, I think what Alan was trying to do with your grant proposal was to build capacity for the town and not make it something that had to be either volunteer driven or on staff. But this program seems to try to empower the communities to create your own energy coaching programs, and gives you the steps and resources to be able to try to do that.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, but let's move ahead if we can. So, quick question.
So Jana, so this program that the coaching is really not for the community, it's for the departments or the towns. That's where the coaching is, so that they can set up a program. Is that what I'm understanding that you just said?
I think there's communities that have like volunteer-based energy coaching groups that have been, so for example, the Brooklyn example that Alan shared is a volunteer-driven group. But they relied on coordination and administration and things like that by their Island Fellows. So that's the role that the Island Fellow played with that group. But the members of the group are all community members who are volunteering their time to then work on this effort. So this program is essentially designed to like work with local groups in communities that are participating in energy coaching, so that they could get resources and like best practices and stuff to be able to continue the work they're doing.
Good. Thank you, Jana. And by the way, I did hear from a fellow from Climate to Thrive who reached out to, I think you passed it along, my contact information along to him, and that was fine. I thank you for that. One of the things that we wanted to do was to go around the committee and find out which topics are the ones that we are most in favor of. And the idea was that we didn't want to keep finding ourselves scattered amongst too many different directions. Might want to tighten the focus some. And if I recall correctly, the minutes of the meeting suggested that come with your top 3 favorite projects and a 1-sentence explanation of why you feel each is
One
important.
sentence, whoops, I did like 4 or 5 bullet points, but I can narrow it down.
I thought we did this, like, when Alan was here. I thought we did this. I just feel like we keep doing this. We all kind of did this already. So why are we keep doing it? Like,
Well,
Because
what
we
was the
keep
result?
changing our minds on what we want to do. Like we got rid of the garden project, but then we were discussing adding it back in. So, in an effort to just be sure,
Finalize it.
finalize it. Yeah.
So perhaps we can make this poll our final poll and discussion, RE, which buckets we're gonna use.
I do have to say though, because I know part of my decision making and part of like discussions as a whole, as a group, we've talked about reasons why certain things were okay, had everything to do with having access to an island fellow. You know, like in talking about, well, can we handle this particular thing? Well, yeah, we could handle it because we could get an island fellow. Now I'm like second guessing everything.
Yeah, let me make a quick comment there. One wants to design the grant application to be a realistic application. The Island Fellow represented a way of getting a certain amount of labor for a certain price.
Right.
What the labor needs are, whether they can be filled by volunteers, whether they can be filled by paid staff of some sort, is something that we need to flesh out at the time that we submit the application. And because of, if there's an uncertainty there, then one wants to provide a plan A and a plan B in case plan A can't work. But I don't see that as a fundamental barrier because the nature of the program will go with what the resources are that we're able to bring to it. And,
So it'll be right size to capacity essentially.
right.
That's yeah.
Now, if we could take a moment to give each person a chance to talk about the topics of their particular interest. Anybody like to go first?
I'm happy to, but I'm happy to defer
Okay,
to someone else as well.
I would say Tracy.
So I continue to land on C1, C5, and F3, and the reason is because those three they have some synergy together. They have some similar elements of the work that would complement the other. I know that just for clarification. Anyway, so that's more than a sentence, but the energy coaching program, I think it's really crucial for low-income people, so it's sort of drawing on the public feedback we had about people who are vulnerable. It'll also, I think, it sort of ties into the educational support piece as well. And so the energy coaching program, I think, will be a big one for me. And then the education piece as well. And then I had the vulnerability assessment, which is the F3. And, you know, if all of those were to happen together, they'd sort of complement each other. But a 1, 2, and 3. So C1 is my first choice. C5, I think it is my second choice, is the education. And F3 is my third.
But anybody have any
No.
questions for Tracy? Who would like to go next? Yes, Emily.
I actually had the same 3. I didn't list them in order of importance to me, just that those were my 3. I felt like, let's see my notes. C1 energy coaching program, I feel like that still plays into vulnerable populations because being able to make your home more energy efficient has everything to do with being safer in extreme weather, in increased cold, increased heat, and keeping yourself warm and cool as energy costs rise. I think F3, the vulnerability assessment, is not only reflects the feedback from the community, but is an important part of emergency management. And C5, I feel like, really goes hand in hand with the energy coaching program.
Thank you. Any questions for Emily? Would like to go next.
I guess I could.
Yes, Stephen.
I'd like to see energy coaching at the top of the list. I think that'd be a good thing to learn about. Also, food insecurity. I believe that's a timely issue.
Do you remember what number that was?
No, I can't remember
I'm looking
exactly
for
what that
I
was.
have it.
Okay.
That was E14.
E14? Okay. And then also we need to make more homes more energy efficient. So I forgot what that one was, but I agree that would be a good solution.
Okay, any questions for Stephen? Who'd like to go next?
I will.
Yes, Chris.
I'll give you my sheets. I don't know if you want to copy that.
Okay.
My first one is F3, and I'm kind of snarky about it. This is a long needed, and hopefully will overcome the transparency obstacles that exist with whatever plans and policies are being hidden by the town of Bucksport. The second one is E5, an inventory. That's to develop a habitat inventory will inform Bucksport citizens about where the most vulnerable locations exist rather than being revealed after the fact. And way back in third place is C5, launch an education communications campaign to promote the opportunities. And I wrote it's good bang for the buck and keep the effort constantly in the forefront and hopefully recruits more citizens to participate.
Chris, what was your second one, please?
E5.
E5 is developing a natural resource and habitat
Right.
inventory, includes climate stressors and impacts.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for Chris? Peter, Rich?
I have the C1, C5, and F3 also. Maine has an electric ratepayer advisory council, and one of the things that they found in the recent study that they did was that competitive electric providers are in some cases charging significantly more than the standard offer, and that is skewed towards a higher percentage of low-income participants. And so that's something that people need more education on, because you sign up and you have a discount, but you may have signed up for a variable rate contract. So it's like getting a credit card where 0% for the first 3 months, but then if it's 15% or 30% after that, you're not saving any money.
Which one is that, Peter?
It's a combination of energy coaching for vulnerability and educational support. So there's a lot of things in the electric realm that people don't know about that can be a huge impact.
So C5 is the education and communication campaign, C1 is the energy coaching, F3 is the vulnerability for vulnerable populations, vulnerability assessment. Rich, do you have commentary on preferences for project areas?
I had F3, E5, and C1.
F3, C, E5, okay, and C1.
Yeah, I think E5, it's being discussed at multiple different committees. Knowing the last time we had a forestry report, I mean, I think it was 2011, so we're 14 years past.
Wow.
We've introduced the emerald ash borer, and other invasive species. I mean, we've adopted the Silver Lake boat inspections now, and it just seems that we can continue the efforts around that. And really, I did the drone. I had the drone video done of the Silver Lake 89-acre parcel the town owns, and you could see some of the damage to the trees. Not quite sure what it's all from, but I think if we could get into that, that was one of my big ones.
Which one was that?
More so E5, but I mean, I think you need to start with F3.
So F3 again is the vulnerability assessment, E5 was the habitat inventory. Any questions for Rich?
Just a comment that F3 almost is sort of rising as one that would help all the other projects.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
that's actually what we had the other committee come in here initially to do. Like, we wanted to combine with the, I can't think of the name of the committee.
Conservation Commission.
Thank you, the Conservation Committee, because I think it's more powerful to join forces as everybody's working in a silo. Then it's, you know, the money, like, we can actually combine opportunities, you know, to make an impact, so.
It could also inform an energy coaching program by identifying a target population.
Suzanne?
So I would say F3, E5, and I keep losing hold on, if I take my glasses off, I can see. E14, so that's just a really important one for me, because I think food insecurity is a really big thing, and I think for me, the reason is, and since we've already talked the points on F3 and F5, F3 and E5, and they were all valid points, but the food insecurity makes direct impact on a daily basis, and it doesn't require anyone that is lower income or just having food insecurities do anything but to participate, whereas some of these others requires an investment of some sort. And so for me, if we're looking at lower income populations or even middle class populations, because they're equally as vulnerable, it's a lot to ask, you know, people to invest into something that may save them money down the line. It's good to be educated. I think there's a lot of education already out there, but when you're doing providing real resources at the time when someone needs it most, that to me is the most important thing, is that, you know, and I guess it goes along. So I would say F3, E5, and then I think was E14.
So I thought we were choosing from the 5 that were identified on the grant. Are we choosing from the entire list again? I'm just confused.
Everything mentioned is one of the 5.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good, all right, perfect. Oh, you know why? Because it's truncated, E1. I was like, where's E14? I don't see it.
Well, yeah, E15 is not, E14 isn't on the most recent one because we had previously deleted it, so
That's
the
where-
most
that's where I
updated
got
one you won't
confused.
find it on.
Okay, that's
I say
But
that's
out
the
of
one
the
that I.
5,
Yeah.
all of that have mentioned are, are one of the 5.
But I like to also say that I think whatever we decide, making a decision is just really the most important thing right now, because moving forward, anything we choose is gonna benefit. I just think, you know, I mean, everyone can make a good argument, but I just don't wanna keep rehashing this. Let's make a decision, whether it's my favorite or my least favorite, I'm in for a decision.
I'm gonna add up each of these when Ralph is done. I'm gonna add up like what each one is.
Well, mine is not surprising. C1, C5, F3 were my 3 in that order. And my sentences were household energy use for climate control is about half of a typical household energy use. and can be reduced significantly by applying fast payback time efficiency measures. The second one, reduction of fossil fuel use and of energy in general through efficiency measures also reduces out-of-pocket costs and immediately saves money. And the third one, the vulnerability assessment, further understanding of who is at risk and what opportunities are available to ameliorate the risk can guide further progress for those most in need. Were my rationales for the three. Let me make one further comment, which is that the education and communication campaign, let me read what it said, launch an education and communications campaign to promote the opportunities and benefits of clean energy, energy efficiency, clean transportation, and demand management initiatives. It seems to me, and this is just a personal opinion, that if one is doing education, community education, any useful information, especially useful to vulnerable populations, can be part of the communication that's being disseminated in an education and communication campaign. So, although we need to write a grant application that explains what we're trying to do, it seems to me that the walls surrounding what it is we're trying to do have some flexibility to them, so that if we're explaining to somebody what the rebates are from Efficiency Maine for getting insulation put into their house, and quite frankly, I know somebody that had a $10,000 job and for less than $1,000 that they had to spend for an insulation job, for example, and we're explaining that to someone, we can also explain to them where the food pantry is and how to participate in it, and it's things of that sort. In other words, I don't see a barrier to providing added information. If we do a mailing to every address in town to give important information out in some fashion, for example, what information goes into that, it seems to me could include things that are not limited by what this sentence is that we just read of the description of these topics.
And our farmer's market actually does take SNAP, just so I did check on that, they are SNAP.
Yeah, and every time that you spend, you get a coupon for like $5 off of something, and you do get some like harvest bucks or whatever they call them. So you do get to spend a little bit more. So, yeah.
And they are running through the winter.
Yes, they are.
Inside. No.
In the Brown Hall. So I'll be going there tomorrow. So
That was a really good point, Ralph. So my biggest thing is if somebody is low income, they're not gonna have $1,000
That's
to
right.
spend.
exactly.
So that's my whole argument, and it sounds great, and also, and I don't know this, and this is just my opinion, a lot of times, if they are lower income, and even mid-income, they might not own the homes that they're in, so they can't make these changes. They're owned by other sources, and, you know, they may or may not care whether it's energy efficient because they may or may not be paying that bill. So those are so that's I guess the way that I think about it. I want to educate people, of course, and give options, but I liked what you said about it's a communication, so we don't have to limit it to just things, but I'm thinking if there's food insecurities and finding out, I think what the vulnerable, we're making, like even myself, I'm making a whole bunch of assumptions about what I think is. I don't know what the population is. I don't know, some people can live in a most beautiful house and they could be, you know, eating soup every night, because that's all they can afford. So, I just think we just have to make a decision. I think your point is made. We can, communicate many different options, but we have an ability to get money to make a program, and I think we need to just do that.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes.
If we need to stay a little bit later past 7, would everyone be open to it? Because we're now at 6:42 and we still have not really moved on from these three.
I have a work call at 7:15 with
That's-
Oh, what?
I do have the numbers if that helps.
I can text her and get what,
If she got the numbers already, that might help us get through.
okay. but I can try and see if she can put it.
So I'll try to say these with what they are. C1 had 6 votes, which is energy coaching program. C5 also had 6, which is clean energy education. F3 was all of us at 8, and that is the vulnerability assessment. 2 said E14, which is the food insecurity and gardens. And then E5 was 3, which is the forestry.
The inventory.
Inventory, that's the word, thank you.
So which one was the one that everybody agreed on was?
F3, the
F3.
vulnerability
So I
assessment.
think there it is, that's the answer. We all agree, what, you know, it's on everybody's list.
I think we were talking about doing multiple.
You have to put 3, right? Correct. I think the grant application has a spot for up to
Right.
5. We wanted to narrow it down to 3, is that correct? I pulled the application.
Yeah, that's what we were talking about.
We were concerned about whether resources would go beyond that. You're saying
Okay.
something, Jana?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you don't have to apply, you can apply for one project, you don't have to apply for 3 or 5. What sort of designates like how many projects you can go after is really gonna be the cost estimate that you get for who's going. So if you hire a consultant to do the vulnerability assessment, you're gonna wanna put together a scope of work as to like what elements of a vulnerability assessment that you're looking for, and then share that with maybe some organizations that could help. And I think Alan had identified one at least in the draft grant application as someone that did social. I'm assuming that we're still talking about social vulnerability assessment,
Yes.
which was the
Yes,
yeah.
it was not.
Yeah, so
not
there's
the
certain consulting firms and organizations that would help and assist with putting together that vulnerability assessment. And so if that's like the consensus amongst the group, I would maybe just start there and get some estimates back, because those estimates could range from somewhere like $25,000 to $55,000, and then that would allow you to understand how much out of a $75,000 grant would be left over to potentially put toward another project.
And there were estimates that Alan had put together on the application that he had
So
left
that
with us.
$15,000 estimate is very low. I'm gonna say that. I don't know how much of a vulnerability is like what you would be getting for that vulnerability assessment at $15,000. So I don't know if like it's flushed out exactly what sort of deliverables you'd be getting out of the work that would be done. 15,000 just seems extremely low to me, just working with consultants a lot. I'm not sure, if there's an expectation of what you would get, like what the group is looking for out of a social vulnerability assessment, what some of the deliverables and information you would like to see out of that. I think it could help inform the energy coaching program specifically, like if you put that in there as one of the bullet points, and what you're looking at would be, we want to identify some of these vulnerable populations, understand if heating costs and energy costs is a barrier for them, what types of like educational type programs and potentially materials would be helpful to be able to distribute. So you could focus some of this assessment on lining you up for future work for the energy coaching program.
Yeah,
You know what I
that was
mean?
kind of my thought earlier, that it's sort of, F3 is a good impetus to feed a lot of the different,
Even
interest
food,
areas,
right, the
yeah.
food insecurity. Jana, I have a question, because I think that 15,000 was based on Brooklands, maybe, because they were doing an assessment, and their population is a lot smaller than Bucksport, and I don't really know what the scope is, but do you have access to any scope of works for this particular type to provide us, so we have a framework and we can look at that to get us going, so that scope of works that have gone out for for this type of assessment, and that we can, because I'm guessing we're gonna have to do a request for information or something to put out to get people to respond for, you know, a response of interest.
Yeah, so Elizabeth Hertz is the woman that is assisting 4 towns. Actually, it's I can never remember which ones they are, but they're all located on the Blue Hill Peninsula, and she's helping with the social vulnerability assessment for them. She also did a regional type social vulnerability assessment in the Mid-Coast as well. And I do believe in my correspondence with Ashley Krulik, I asked if the Community Resilience Partnership had funded any other social vulnerability assessments up to this point, and the answer was no. The only one that they knew of was the ongoing one on the Blue Hill Peninsula. But that's not to say that I can't find I could talk to Elizabeth Hertz and just see what type of work she has done with other communities and see if we can get some of the proposals or the request for proposals that were done by those towns that she responded to.
That would be great, because that's a really good starting point for us, and then we can build our additional questions that we may have that's specific for Bucksport, and what we're looking to do overall. But thank you, that would be great.
I think the $15,000, was that the cost per year of the Island Institute Fellow?
Yeah.
So I think what we're talking about having them be the primary person on doing it?
Not
No,
how we
it's
made
a-
the estimate, no.
Okay.
No, so
But-
there was I don't have the draft grant open right now. I'm gonna open it. It was 15,000 for the Island Institute Fellow, but I believe that it was also listed as 15,000 for the consultant as well to do the social vulnerability assessment.
I think we'd still be okay to do 3, even if the vulnerability assessment cost more, because that original budget was made off of 5 projects.
The 15,000 or the
No,
15?
the total.
Okay.
That original estimates that he had laid out fit 5 projects in the total amount that we could get. But also the other thing about 3 projects is he had mentioned having more than one strengthens the application, because we were originally talking about
I
one.
found the budget page.
Yeah,
It
so
was
14,500 not to exceed for the vulnerability assessment. Is what was listed here, and then promotion of local food community gardens.
Are we looking at the same application? I've got 17,500, and the local gardens one isn't on the budget.
He adjusted them. She
Oh.
might be looking at the one before he deleted it
Yeah, so we had
and
one
then adjusted the amounts.
that the total budget for all of the projects we had identified, 4 of them, was 74,580. It was 15 that 15 was for the Island Institute per year, so it was a $30,000 ask, and then 17,500 for the natural resource inventory. But the vulnerability assessment he had at 17,500. But I feel like I think I agree with Jana that it may
Absolutely.
be wise just to settle on that one, because we don't know if that could produce something that says we don't need this one. We don't need, we just don't know. I think this vulnerability assessment might give us answers to direct another project. I don't know. I just opened the thoughts on
I
that.
think we can list 3 on it, and then we don't have to do all 3 of them.
Right.
That was,
just do
that
one.
was the point, yes, Peter, that's the point that you made, that, to list it only strengthens the grant approval process. And then once, is that wrong, Jenna?
It's honestly, it's all budget driven. So like if you feel like you can get a really good plan and it costs like $75,000 to get a consultant to come in and do a really good plan for you, then you can go with one project. It doesn't have to be a whole host of and you put in the grant application that the reason that you're focusing on this one is because your other interest areas, your other priority area is energy coaching programs, whatever the other two, C5 and C1, and that the community wants to pursue that in the coming years, but you want to do the vulnerability assessment first to ensure that you're setting up those programs correctly. So, I mean, you can make an argument, but there's no like, you know, it doesn't become more competitive if you have 3 in there. I think it's really just making the case why this is so important to do first, and also ensuring that the budget matches it correctly. And I only say that because with the natural resources inventory, I spoke to some consultants that do that in the state, and that 14,000 or 17,500 he had in the application is like wouldn't even cover the cost of them doing an inventory for Bucksport. They said more like $75,000 to do that work. So I'm just kind of, if we have the time to be able to put this application together, I would say to, like I said, put together this scope of work and kind of talk to some individuals that do this type of work and see what a realistic budget would be to get the deliverables that you're looking for.
Completely agree.
Me too.
And as of my previous profession right before this was a consultant, and there's nothing I think I did for that amount of money.
And there's some flexibility in knowing that we can sort of go all in on the
Yes.
plan rather than have to sort of cut the budget on that I like the idea.
And
So what information do we want to get between now and our next meeting, and when do we want to have our next meeting? Do you want to meet in the first half of December sometime, or so that we can be getting some information between now and then?
I'm okay with that. So Jana's gonna try to get some request for information or scope of work, or you're gonna get some other proposals that were put out to get this information for, and what some deliverables that, just a baseline for us to kind of create this narrative that we need, and open discussions for us to say, okay, this works for us, we need to add this. It's just a really good framework to start with. I think that's our next step.
I think we definitely need to somebody needs to talk to Elizabeth Hertz about
I think Jana said she was
a
gonna
good
talk.
idea of the cost for a vulnerability assessment.
Jana, how do you spell Elizabeth's last name?
I believe it's HERTZ, just like the car
Okay.
rental company.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But
And you have a contact information for her?
I do, yes.
I wondered if there's any wisdom in having our next meeting in January. Do you think there's a pressing need to have it in December? With the deadline now to be made, I just think it might be difficult to track some people down in December. I'm not sure, Rich, you might have a better sense of that. but I don't
I
know.
think if Jenny gets that information, at least we could circulate at least with us, whether we have a meeting, so we can start kind of
At
doing
least
the
read it.
proposal.
Yeah.
And forgive me, because I'm thinking, Emily, what you're saying is talk to, I can't think of her name, Hertz,
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, I wanted to say Emily Hertz. So part of finding out, getting that information is that when we do a request for information, or they're gonna come back with numbers for us. That's the whole idea. We're putting this out to a group of people. I'm assuming this is how it's done here. And so people will come back saying, I can meet those requirements for this amount of money, rather than calling one person, which it's okay to find out, but it's that's the whole purpose of us doing a request for information, so that we have the information to actually do our grant, and then also put out a request for proposal to find that consultant. And it could be the person that actually submits the information, but it's a process. But I think we have to do that soon. So
Yeah, I can kind of give you a similar scenario. So for the towns of Sullivan and Waltham, they wanted to do a culvert vulnerability assessment. And so what I did was put together a proposal or a scope of work, and I showed it to a few engineers and just said, what would your cost estimate be to do something like this? And I got a range. And so because this is a grant request, I asked for the high end of the range because you don't wanna limit yourself. And then from there, we put out an RFP and
So-
we're right now getting responses for the RFP. So, and you can do it as an RFP or an RFQ, like however you wanna do it. But that at least gives you a cost estimate going into the grant application. It doesn't commit you to doing work with any one individual. It just gives you that estimate so that you can put in a good estimate into your grant application and get that funding. And once you get the funding locked down, then you can put out the RFP and figure out who could do the work for you.
Okay, so then maybe it is Elizabeth, since, would
Yeah.
it, she would be somebody that would go, and you said she's the only one that you know of that's doing it anyways.
When I used to work for the city of Ellsworth, she did some social vulnerability housing type work for Ellsworth too. So I've heard her name around for a while, and she is pretty reputable around here.
Yeah, just to help us build that scope of work, I think would be good.
So, how do members feel about, committee members feel about meeting either in December or in January? We could certainly share information, there's the Google Drive method and emails. If we get some information in the meantime, we don't have to have a meeting to share some information, but how do other committee members feel about when to meet next?
My schedule's open, so.
Tracy's suggesting maybe January rather than December. Anybody have any other
Works
commentary?
for me. Works for
But
me.
I'm, you know, I'll attend.
I would like to have a snow day there with it, schedule during the winter.
I'm okay meeting in December, and I'm okay waiting till, I just don't wanna keep kicking the can. I keep saying that, but that's my biggest concern. And I'm guilty of it too, cause if it gets away from me, like I can't remember why I missed it. I didn't see it, but I just don't want it to become stale, because then it's gonna creep up on us.
Any other commentary on our next meeting date?
Yeah, I think meeting in January makes sense.
Mhm.
If we get information in December that we can share with people, we can also set a deadline for comments. So
Good idea.
give ourselves a deadline, like, you know, middle of December, get comments in before there's no chance of getting them.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Just, yeah.
Looking at the calendar in January, I don't know about the availability of this room, Rich, but,
I'm in Florida,
okay.
so I can do this, yeah.
I get your link. January 7th looks all right. January 14th looks all right.
Same.
January 21st looks all right. And the 28th. All 4 Wednesdays look all right.
And Wednesdays seem to have worked for everybody who's in the room. Is there a likelihood that they will continue to work for everybody?
Oh, yeah.
in
Definitely.
January?
Closer to the beginning of January will probably work better for me because I have that other meeting that tends to be on the second or third Wednesday of the month.
Oh, I'm at that too.
Yeah.
What is that other meeting?
Yeah.
I didn't know there was a conflict.
So you're saying the first
Oh,
Wednesday works the
BBHC.
best?
I was like, which
What?
one?
The first Wednesday works the
Yeah.
best, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
7th.
January 7th?
Yeah, because BBHC has a standing meeting on the second,
Yeah.
we think.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was the second, and I had asked for this one to not be that date, and then BBHCC ended up scheduling an immediate meeting afterwards, so I had that one today as well. In the end, I tried to avoid it.
All right.
So the 7th, tentatively the 7th, or we'll make it the 7th.
Yeah, let's just do the 7th.
6 to 7 p.m.
Okay.
Day still work okay? And what other tasks do we want to try to, or information, are there any other tasks or information we want to try to gather other than Jana getting a hold of Elizabeth Hertz? Anything else that anyone wants to pursue?
Nothing other than, should we schedule a snow day? It snows in January and May. What do we do if it snows on the
We-
7th?
We can actually do a phone conference, or a phone thing, can't we?
Yep, we can do it by,
That's great.
Yep.
That's great.
I'll come down and make sure it's taken care of.
Okay.
I'll be here, snow or not.
We learned that sometimes with other groups. we've
I'll
been
send out the invite to everybody for the 7th, and I'll include the link like I did for Jana tonight.
Thank you very much. Rick.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that way, if you wanna come, if you can make it in person, do so, and if you don't feel comfortable, then just go online.
Thank you.
Yeah.
May I ask one more question?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I know it's getting late. Should we assume that there's a point out there in the future where these awards are given out and there's a land rush for consultants all of a sudden? Is that something that you've experienced in the past, Jana, where all of a sudden all the towns are looking for consultants and the consultant pool dries up or the rates go up rapidly?
No, the only thing I've noticed is that, so that is happening in southern Maine to some degree, where there is a lot of sort of infighting, I guess, amongst the firms that are in the southern part of the state. And to try to avoid that, I've noticed that they're trying to creep up this way.
Okay.
So we're actually almost benefiting from
from
having more consultants wanting to work with the northern Maine towns because there's too much competition in the southern part of the state. And they're all very much aware that these are opportunities for them because towns are getting funding to work with consultants. And so I've actually had consulting firms reach directly out to towns to say, hi, we are so-and-so, and we know that you are working on community action grants. Can we help you apply for some? Instead of working with myself or other like resources that we have locally. So, you know, it happened to one of our towns, they forwarded it to us and they were like, hey, just so you know, there's fishing happening out there. So that's the only thing I know that's kind of like an implication of everything that's going on. But
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
yeah.
So, just before we break up, any evaluative comments about the meeting, what things could be run better, how things went tonight, what suggestions anyone has, any commentary on the meeting evaluation?
It was great for me.
Yeah.
10 out of
Thank you
10.
for letting me attend virtually.
Absolutely. I'll send out invites later on tonight or tomorrow.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes, have a good day.